My name is Anand Janefalkar. I'm the founder and CEO of UJet. And my background has been in building telecommunication products, whether it's hardware, wireless hardware, or devices that use mobile and Bluetooth. But I always was very entrepreneurial and wanted to start my own thing. And when I asked myself, what is the biggest problem I face on a regular basis? It's probably not difficult to tell by looking at the spelling of my last name. It's a pain to spell that on a support call. To add insult to injury, that's also in my personal email, so I never get follow-up emails. So I must not be the only person that faces this problem. So I decided to make it my purpose and really research this sector to find out if there's any solution that I would want to use as a consumer or as a support platform for my future company. I didn't really find anything. So I decided that the reason for that is because everyone is treating support pretty much as an afterthought, as a cost center, and that didn't really drive. So that's why I started UJet, because customer support should be an integral part of your product experience and not just a cost center, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We have a really nicely curated list of topics that we'll go through, and at the end of each topic, I really want to bring up some thought-provoking questions. Is like, why is support so painful today? And we'll try and answer that throughout the session, as well as answer any questions that you'll have at the end of it. So why don't we get started? So how is technology really impacting customer relationships? What we're seeing is we're in the middle of three macro trends. These are really far-reaching effects of technology that we're going through. At the risk of stating the obvious, we live in a smartphone era, right? I mean, all of the interactions that we initiate, they come through our smartphone. In fact, more than 50% of households in the US are wireless only, and most of them are smartphone only. And this is just the beginning. I mean, the penetration for smartphones in adults in the US is about 77%. With millennials, it's above 80%. And if you go outside in Europe and some of the developing countries, a lot of people have two smartphones, one for personal use and one for work use. So the question to be asked here is like, why are we as companies designing or implementing support products that are not smartphone-centric? So hold on to that thought. The second kind of macro trend that we're experiencing is on-demand economy. There are several services that are, if you just walk a few blocks in either direction from our venue here, you'll see that there's huge businesses that really have drastically changed how we interact with services. You no longer wait for a song to download before you listen to it. You no longer pick up the phone and call a cab company saying, I'm at the Palace Hotel, I need to go to the airport. What is the cab number and license plate? No, those are not the experiences that drive us today. So the question to be asked here is, why is that in those very apps that you love and use, why is support the only tab that throws you outside the app into a dialer, or supports the only tab that throws you into in an email client on the website? The third one is an empowered customer base. People are very educated in terms of the choices that they have today, and they're very vocal. In fact, the new normal is the online reviews. This is the new word of mouth, right? And people will really take into consideration before doing business, before going to a restaurant, or before going to a website to sign up for a service. So the question to ask here is like, why aren't companies listening to these reviews and listening to their customers? A lot of times you'll come across decision makers that will say like, yeah, we have this solution, our NPS looks good, we're really happy with it, but I think the question to be asked is, are your agents happy? Are you having a lot of churn with your agents? Are you having a lot of churn with your customers? And those are the three macro trends that we are going to take, and those questions we're going to try and answer. Because how does this lead into what affects your bottom line for your business? What is the risk here? So companies lost $62 billion for churn in 2016. And this number is $21 billion more than it was in 2014. Now, why is there a sudden acceleration in the amount of money lost because of churn? Because there are more choices. There's no longer the economies in the 80s where there's just one or two solutions that you have to choose from, and you're kind of stuck with it, right? And this trend is going to keep accelerating. So that is the bad news. The good news is that customers are very, very loyal. If you look at a company that has really happy customers, 70% of them, almost 70% of them, will spend more money with that business, will have repeat business, will recommend that company to others, and will use more frequently if they're launching new product lines or SKUs in that particular business. So one thing to ask is, like, are you stuck in the past, and are you set up for success? So if you find yourself using a solution for your support which is complex to deploy, integrate, and maintain. So if this has very limited scope in terms of geographies, it has very limited scope in terms of channels, limited scope in whether you're just reaching your customers through the website or just through a phone number, that is one sign. The disjoint experiences across different solution points. There's a lot of different ways that you can bring feature parity and really initiate sales motions like upsell, buying premium services, so on and so forth. So it's really paramount that you have experiences that seem very much in tune with the product, the brand, service, and the effort that you put behind that. If you're also coming across your support solution where to bring your vision to life, where a modern contact center has voice, chat, help desk, video, chat, screen sharing, annotations, so on and so forth, and satisfaction rating. If you're using multiple vendors, different services that don't really harmoniously talk to each other, that is another way to identify this. And lastly, but most importantly, if you are paying multiple charges, if your statement or contract has more than 15, 20 line items, then you're really paying for the technical debt that these solutions are providing you. So that is really an indication that you need to be a part of this paradigm shift. And what that is it really makes us look at support and success as an experience, and not as an afterthought, not as a cost equation, and not even as a channel equation. So what does an experience equation mean? And we will go in a little bit deeper depth on each of these. Is essentially, there are three unique user sets. The first user set is the end user, that is accessing your services, there's paying for your services. The second user set is your agent or your customer service representative that is answering these questions, calls or chats or whatever that might be. And then the third user set, which we'll talk in the next section, is the contact center manager, supervisor, and other people who are really taking this, measuring the impact, and really telling you how it's affecting your business, your brand recognition, and the bottom line. But let's talk about the first two. For an end user, you really have to be available through the right channels. It's really not okay why you're using the product, brand, and service through the app and you absolutely love it, but if they hit a snag or an issue, when they go to the support tab, it really only gives them a very, very substandard experience. That is the opportunity, or that is kind of the point where a customer will make an impulsive decision to go over to a competitor. So we really need to make sure that a platform that you're using for support allows your customers to communicate through the web, the app, as well as the phone. Reducing the cognitive distance between the agent and the issue. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is one of our foundational principles when we designed the platform, is why is it today that in your app, let's take a case of your banking app, right? You can log in with your fingerprint or Touch ID or Face ID. I can move up to about $1,000 and pay my bills over there. But as soon as I hit the support tab, it throws me outside the app into a phone call, and then I'm starting that conversation all over again. It's like identifying myself with my favorite band in high school. which I don't even remember what I entered when I signed up for the service. So reducing the cognitive distance is really important. So passing a bunch of information about what's your membership tier, whether you're a car insurance customer, whether you're a home insurance customer, are you someone that has signed up for an HBO or Showtime in addition to your normal cable subscription. All of those things need to be available to the agent right before the call or chat are initiated. So that way it really gets rid of this mantra, which is like, hey, welcome to brand so-and-so, who do I have the pleasure of talking to? Like, I've already spent so much time on your website and your app trying to figure something out, you should probably know who I am. So that is something that we really, really focus on. And the third one is something that is really near and dear to our heart. I'm sure I've experienced this a bunch of times. I'm sure you have too. And this is a trend that is not new. If you even look at the research that has been done from 2005 from a Harris and Bank of America report, the biggest problem that customers had with service was staying on hold, not getting a quick resolution, and spending endless time identifying themselves and diagnosing the problem, and then being transferred and not getting resolution. So focusing on getting the fastest resolution possible is very, very important. And how does that reflect into the choices that you made while selecting your provider? If you're looking at a provider where their business is incentivized by extending the duration of the conversations, if they're marking up the cost per minute, if they're charging you for different kind of phone lines, that is an indication that the business itself inherently is architected to support those secondary revenue lines. So these are some of the things that you need to kind of keep in mind. And now that brings us to the third customer set, user set, which is the contact center supervisor or the admins. And they really can leverage a bunch of technology to help make their contact centers efficient and also help with globalization. So cloud and SaaS is here. I mean, the tallest tower on the West Coast is from a SaaS company. So I think cloud and SaaS company. So it is really very impactful. Not having a solution where you have to maintain it on premise and there's no proper replicating system or a scaling system when you increase the size, as well as flexibility if you introduce different markets, some that might have different regulations than your home market. It's very, very important. And with a global team and a global market outreach, collaboration is something that makes cloud makes it very super easy for. Second one is artificial intelligence and machine learning. And again, in addition, so there's two specific things that customer support has been void of. The first one is artificial intelligence and machine learning. If you've ever been on a call where you've heard that, hey, your wait time is 8 minutes and you're third in line, and you go past 8 minutes, it's like, then it says like, oh, your wait time is 7 minutes and you're second in line. It is because these are systems that are designed with analog vectors that are just using historical data, not taking into account how much peak hour traffic is coming through, whether your customers are in IVR selection mode or in menu selection mode or on your website initiating a phone call or a chat. So those are the things that we really need to fix. And you'll see when we talk about UJET is that we use for a very basic thing like wait times, we use a linear regression machine learning model, which gives you very accurate wait times. So, and it also gives you an option if you want to wait for that or you want to schedule a guaranteed callback where all of the information is already presented to the agent. Then APIs, how do managers really measure these metrics? So getting these APIs without doing a completely disruptive process of getting rid of all the tools that they're using or using to report KPIs to their management is really important. So having APIs that eliminate barriers, that are throttle-free, that don't come at as additional costs, gives you true customer insights, not just gives you bits and pieces of what the sentiment looks like. I don't think it takes a genius to know if someone's on hold for 8 minutes and then you transfer them 2 times, the sentiment is going to be bad. You don't really need to measure that. But again, in addition to all of that, you need to streamline these processes, present it to the right people who can make really actionable items based on that data, and supports innovation. So if you're building tools for your supervisors, your contact center managers, people that are walking the floor, that's really, really important to provide. And lastly, this is the second thing that customer success has traditionally been void of, is user experience. And user experience plays such an integral part. It's very, very obvious. So experience will always win. If you have a great ROI story, if you have a great product, but you are devoid of UX, very likely there will be another provider or a solution that will win. So how do you take all of that and make it work for a specific industry or a specific brand? So we'll talk about a real-world example here where SpotHero, who's one of our customers, and has a very unique communication model. They're a leading parking service in North America, and if you imagine what customers use this for, customers are driving and trying to find parking spaces. So they don't really have access. Some might have access to their phone in states that allow you to use a phone while you're driving. In California, you can't. Or they're communicating through the Bluetooth. So what they really needed was a platform that is truly reliable, because a customer might be calling you once in a year, and if you have unreliable service and the call is dropped, you're going to lose that customer to a competing product or service. So here is what we found out with SpotHero. We saw a 70% reduction in permanent voice charges, and that is just a very transparent pricing model. We saw 50% savings in 50% savings in telephony expense, and this is your licensing fees, whether you have your CRM adapter fees, you have geographical redundancy fees, recording fees, and all of that. So there's a lot of different ways that providers in the sector can really get you, and that is something that they felt was very refreshing. Also, deploying to agents and training overhead was reduced by 20%. And lastly, which is most important, the abandoned calls were reduced by 50%, which is a huge number. So just to recap everything that we spoke today, I mean, the on-demand and smartphone-centric economy is upon us. We really need to build experiences that help just embrace that change, but also have it backwards compatible, because there's going to be demographics of users that would communicate through the traditional channels. Companies are definitely experiencing a lot of churn, and that's taking businesses really out from certain sectors. So that needs to be a focus. And complex and convoluted systems are really slowing down how you can bring these experiences to your customers. And finally, I can't repeat this enough, support should be an experience equation and not a channel equation or a cost center. So please come by and say hello to us on booth 4, and what we can show you there with the demo and share more kind of case studies here is that how a real-time communication platforms that really makes it easy for customers and businesses to instantly connect, whether it's over voice, whether it's over a callback, whether it's a scheduled callback if you can't wait for the wait time that is presented to you, or if it's a chat. And not only that, using a flexible, reliable, and secure platform. We're SOC 2 Type 2 certified, and we're HIPAA certified, so we're enterprise ready. And we, in fact, have deployments, and we can share more about that. And best-in-class ROI with a very disruptive pricing model. I'm sure you've experienced this. You communicate with a provider and negotiate on a license fee. And once that negotiation's done and the contract actually comes to you, there's like 14 or 15 line items, which you have no idea what they're for. That is something that we promise, is that we have an extremely transparent pricing model. And we don't believe in the bait and switch way of interacting. So what UJET really is it's a platform that's been designed for distributed cloud and smartphone-centric experiences as primary design principles. The interface is something that we call as a soft landing. Customer behavior change is extremely, extremely hard. So why is it that when your customers, when they talk to their friends and family, when two humans interact today, they don't interact thinking of a channel in mind, right? So if I buy a car, I don't call up my parents and say like, hey, Dad, I bought a car, it's about 12 feet long, it's about 6 feet wide, it's gray in color. No, I'm like, I take a picture, I send it over, and then when I call them, it's like, did you see, I just bought a new car. Support is the only time when two humans interact today, and then they talk like they're in the 1980s. And that is something that we have made sure is not an experience with our platform. So whether customers are communicating with you through voice, through chat, whether they're starting these connections from the web, from the app, or just picking up the phone and using muscle memory to call your 1-800 or local number, we got you covered. And this really fits nicely with your existing toolkit. So if you have workforce management systems that you're using, if you have data visualization tools that you're using, if you have business intelligence tools or data mining that you already have all of this set up, you will not have to disrupt any of this. In fact, we plug and play with a lot of the CRMs, with a lot of these workforce management, visualization, and business intelligence tools. So come by and we can show you how we can help your customers to hang up happy. All right.
We have a few minutes for questions. Anyone have questions? No? Oh,
yeah.
Here.
So when you have all this accessibility and you are getting in front of the customer spaces faster and through more channels, how do you guys balance your reps for feeling overwhelmed and tugged at from all these different channels and
Yeah.
stress out for trying to get to everything as soon as possible?
Yeah, so there's two questions there, and a very good question, and thank you so much for bringing that up. So we don't believe that channels should be presented just because we built those channels. We believe that a channel selection is dependent on the complexity as well as the urgency of the issue. Now, if you're buying, let's say, I really like this sweater and I want to buy this for my brother and we want to wear it for Thanksgiving dinner, I can just go on a website and look at what it is. So that will be the web channel. Now, if I need to order 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, then that merits a chat conversation saying, like, is there an expedited way? I didn't find it on your website to do that. Now, if I find that that delivery has had a delivery exception, that warrants a phone call saying, like, hey, my plan's going to be ruined. Is there a way to do that? So channels are really dictated by the urgency as well as the complexity of the issue. And there's no one issue that really has a clear path towards a channel. The second question is, how do we manage this for agent efficiency? We have an extremely strong real-time adherence module in our platform. And a lot of times, the supervisors, the directors of support, they use our platform instead of the data visualization systems and stuff they use. I don't know if the question included stuff about agents, but we don't provide the agents. We're a SaaS company. We fit this in high-velocity contact centers where traditional analog vectors that predict your wait times or forecasts, all of that goes away, and we use the linear regression machine learning models to help with simple things like that, as well as handling peak hour traffic, as well as making sure that they're smart deflection options. If there's a lot of people calling in, you can give the customer an option to chat. If there's a lot of people that are on call and chat, you give them an option to get a guaranteed callback.
Right. So my question is more pointed to your actual reps. So the last thing you said is probably the most relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Because I assume that you guys use your software.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're in the front line, they're experiencing what your users are experiencing.
Yeah.
as well.
So it is a little different when you look at our support model versus some of our customers, right? When you look at really high velocity contact centers, these are a lot of B2C companies that we provide the platform to. So they have a really high velocity inbound support sequence. For us, our support is still B2B, even though we are a B2B2C platform. So for us, there's more than managing the load that comes in, we have an extremely reliable platform, so we haven't really seen that. In fact, we ended 2017 with 99.9997% uptime. So, but in our case, it's like, how do we help our customers quickly put into place what they envision of how their support channels are? All right, there was one more question over here. Okay.
My question was around quality, right? It doesn't sound like you don't want the quality of the interaction.
Yeah, we take a very methodical approach for quality. And again, we think about three unique customer sets or end user personas, right? There's the end user, there's the agent and the advocate, and contact center manager. So how do we make sure for the end user you're selecting the right channel? So if they don't have a data connection, don't allow them to do a voice over IP call. Obviously, it's going to fail. It will initiate a IVR call. Now, if there's no coverage over there, give them an option to call back. On the agent side, make sure that wherever they are geographically, they don't have network congestion if they're work from home agents or something like that. So quality of service, jitter, latency. Having a global platform like this really makes sure that we understand the regulations. In Europe, there's GDPR. There's different requirements that you need to ask a person for permission before recording it. So all of those things are inherent, integral parts of our platform. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.